Welcome to a special episode of Issues to Impact, brought to you by the I Have Something to Say podcast team. This is where your hosts, Dr. Xaulanda Simmonds-Emmanuel, Chris Majocha, and Samí Haiman-Marrero serve as a sounding board to tackle recurring issues, provide actionable solutions, and build a supportive community for changemakers that want to make a positive impact on society. By leveraging our collective expertise in business consulting, content creation, leadership development, and marketing, we empower founders, professionals, and leaders to face their challenges by sharing how we have overcome these very same obstacles ourselves. We're not here to just talk. We're here to drive real change by helping leaders address the issues holding them back from making an impact. Together, we can make a difference, tackling one issue at a time.
Welcome, everyone, to this special episode of I Have Something to Say, where we are legit launching Issues to Impact. Yay! And we just felt it was very needed to get our internal sounding board together to help leaders in the community, whether it was in business, nonprofits, in the government sector, in corporate, right? Leaders. There's leaders everywhere. Everyone has the potential to be a leader, but sometimes we get stuck, right? Oftentimes because of external factors that are beyond our control. And so we have to leverage these relationships that we have, this circle of trust, to then lean in and try to find solutions. And so that's in essence what Issues to Impact is. And since this month we're celebrating Small Business Month, we invited our friend Alex Kapelos, who is the founder and CEO of Cansulta, all the way from Toronto, Canada, to be our first guest and our first, experiment in exploring solutions, right? I'm like, listen, people, we're running with this, okay? So hold tight, because this is about to get very raw, very real, and we're hoping to land on the other side of this, right? On two solid feet to take a step forward. And so welcome, Alex. How are you? And tell us about Cansulta.
Oh, thank you so much, Samí. I'm so excited to be here, and thank you guys so much for inviting me. I love, as you know, the I Have Something to Say podcast, and when I heard the teaser episode that you guys worked on, and just got so excited because I really do feel like there's a gap, at least for me, in what I've been exposed to and get to hear, which is real people saying real things, unfiltered. That's just very authentic. And, I just really love the whole premise of this show. So I hope lots of people listen and continue down the road. I'll try not to make this too much of a sales opportunity, but I appreciate you giving me that moment. I think, for me, Cansulta as a business is really aligned with, I think, what we're talking about here today. So we are I'm going to use my fancy terms that I change all the time. It depends on my mood and on the day, but we are a curated marketplace for business and management consultants. And basically what that means is that, we do the heavy lifting of going out into the world and trying to find really awesome, reliable, proven, trustworthy business consultants, people who have really been there and done that and can actually know what they're doing to help you in your business. And then we make it easy for them to be able to be hired by you for work through our website. And what's a little different is that we allow people to work in any kind of flexible way. So you could just, work with someone for an hour to get their advice, or you could hire them for a project or something long-term. So we leave it up to the business owners and leaders to figure out directly with their consultants. So that's kind of my plug, and thank you for having me. And I guess why I'm so excited to be here too is that because of my company in this business, I've been in a very privileged position to I think I have the best job most days, not all the time, but that's because I spend most of my days talking to either really smart, talented consultants who really do want to help people build great businesses, And or I talk to great business leaders, owners, founders, entrepreneurs who are really just trying to, again, like do their bit of good in the world, and so that's why I feel very privileged, to talk about these issues with you. And of course, I love big corporate dollars and enterprise. So any of the Fortune 1500 listening, I'm here and open to your money too. But we really are designed at heart, like we have the most impact for small and mid-sized businesses. And so that's where there's like such a great connection here, because those are the people that really need the help the most and usually don't have, access to it the way that they should. So that's my first ramble, and I'll stop taking up all of the airtime here.
Well, to your point, Alex, I mean, it sounds like you do a lot of matchmaking, which is one of the goals that we have here for the podcast, really getting into the issue or issues that, for this particular topic, small business owners might be experiencing, because oftentimes, as you're running your business, you're so focused on what you're doing, you can feel very much alone. So this is a platform that allows us to come together and talk about, in a very open, honest, and kind of raw way, about issues that we're all struggling with, and looking at it from different perspectives so we can help each other come up with solutions, right? It's not just a rant, but a rant with solutions. It's issues to impact and being able to walk away with some action items. So that's our goal for our conversation today. But a little birdie told me that, you have a couple topics you want to talk about. So I'm going to pump it over to Chris. We're doing a relay race. You see my sneakers in the back? We're going to do a relay race today. So I'm going to hand over the baton to Chris, and you can run with it, Chris.
Yeah, and again, Alex, thank you for being our first guest in this iteration of I Have Something to Say with Issues to Impact. And I think, Samí and I had kind of talked about this for a long time about how I Have Something to Say is such a great platform for people to tell their stories. But I think there's also a place for there to be a solution for this or for the challenges that people are coming on to talk about. And although this was not an assigned homework assignment, I believe you had done a little bit of homework on your own to come up with a few different ways where small businesses really are challenged, or let's just say, get the short end of the stick, get the shaft, and just are really what small businesses deal with that a lot of mid-size and larger businesses don't. So if you'd like to, take it away and let us know what some of those are, and we can kind of dive in here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. And yeah, I had the little birdie that was mostly ChatGPT do my research for me. I use the new models, so we have more recent data. So because we know that the old version can lie, so not to be deceived here. So
It's okay.
right, we have to be cautious. You never know,
Yes.
right? Like.
Yes.
Mostly though was because I actually just kind of wanted to validate that my own rambles and the things that I personally feel like infuriate me. I was like, I want to make sure that those are actually things that bother others as well. So yeah, so we do have this little list here just as a trigger point, but I think as we go through them and talk together, we'll unearth which ones. Well, I think they're all relevant, but really, it's kind of looking at the themes of like what are some of the different ways in which, as you mentioned, like being a small business owner, operator, entrepreneur, like we face really unique challenges that larger organizations don't. So yeah, there are so many. I guess to kick us off, of quite a few. I don't know if we'll get through them all today, but I think that's up to the panel here and the vibrancy of the discussion. I think let's start off with the big obvious one, which is really around the finances, right? And not that everything should be about money, but that's the reality, especially for small business. Like we are, definitely more impacted by cash flow. Like cash matters. I don't know about you guys. When I lived my corporate life years ago, I feel now very spoiled to have think that way, but it didn't actually occur to me. Like cash flow was not really something I thought about. Like I got my paycheck. I worked in large organizations. I it never crossed my mind that like a business could have to worry about cash. And I remember I would read a lot about contracts and stuff, and I remember signing the contracts and reading all the payment terms and kind of being like, what does it matter? 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Like, it's great because like I work with big companies that were dealing in the millions and billions.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all had nice, cushy 6-figure salaries. And, even in the smaller companies, like it just wasn't really a thing. So, all that to say that was for me the first thing that really started changing when I became a business owner on my own was like, oh, cash matters.
Yeah.
And so, and it's beyond cash, but everything having to do with financial management. Basically, there are just so many ways where small businesses experience, finances very differently than large ones. And that's where, so I think for me, cash flow is the biggest one, but also things that we hear about today that are very real. For example, like cost of living and inflation. Again, when you're in a large organization, I'm sure you guys have similar experiences, friends and contacts who work in large companies. I found myself hearing a lot in the last year or two, people being like upset that they didn't get their annual bonus. It was like, oh, I didn't get my usual 5%, or even like they were upset because they might have had only 2% when they were used to or expecting, 5 or 6. And while I like really understand and respect that as an employee, that is very frustrating. You're like, I plan my life based on certain expectations. I totally get that. But again, that's a very different perspective. Like when you're a small business, planned annual bonuses, that's not really a thing, right? And like cost of living, like I don't know for you guys, but a loaf of bread costs $8 for me now. And I think that's true for everyone. And so we understand that, for example, raising the minimum wage, really important. Here we've introduced, and I know in the States as well, there are all of these living wage commitments that you can make. And I think those are really valuable. We were a living wage employer, and I think that's super valuable. But to make those commitments is really hard when you're a small business, because even if you like ethically believe in all of these principles, at the end of the day, it's just that much more difficult to pay your bills. So anyway, I think for me, like that is the number one. And the internet seems to agree that of all of the many, many ways it's tough, obviously the financial challenges there are really quite different for us.
Yeah,
What have you guys
totally.
experienced?
And these are the invisible things, right? Because you start and you're like, okay, I mean, I have and if you're in the service industry, for example, right? You're like, I have my laptop, I have my network. I'm like, I have a bank account. I'll open up a bank account. It's not too costly to really set up shop, right? Technically. But then imagine those that need inventory and all of that, right? Or that need research and development, right? And a lot of us small business owners do not have the luxury of that 6 months to a year. Oh, I'm going on sabbatical, or I'm going to go through R&D, right? We just don't have that luxury. We just have to like just hit the ground running with whatever resources we have. And so I agree that's a pain point that we all suffer. And so and there's different ways of managing that, right? We need to combine how we manage the human capital that we need to expand our businesses, right? And move from being a solopreneur to at least a couple of consultants, maybe, right? And maybe by project, right? Or by hourly. I mean, and so there's different ways of splicing and dicing this. And I got to tell you, I've been in business for 16 years and I'm still figuring that out, right? But it's trying to find the right team that can help you go through those exercises so that way you can make an informed decision, right? And then one last thing about financing to grow. I've also learned, and Xaulanda helped me out with this, on how to forecast, right? Some future needs. So that way, you know how many clients you need, how much revenue do you need to be bringing in the next 10 months, for example, right? To have our anniversary party, or to offer up the bonuses, or to purchase new equipment, right? And upgrade, or to travel more, right?
Mhm.
And so doing it's how to forecast. And sometimes we don't learn that in our corporate cushy jobs with the business expense card and all of these
Yeah.
perks, right? That we take for granted. And so
Mhm.
then now I have my business expense card, but I'm very cautious, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, so what are we spending? Where did it go? Right? I need to pay that thing in full by the end of
Yep.
the month, right? And that leads me to my last comment before I pass it along to my colleagues, is that I've learned also, at least in my case, to self fund. And I do that by establishing credit every time, every month when I see him, he say, your credit score, your FICO credit score has increased. I'm like, yes, right? Um, because that's what affords me to keep on looking for business lines of credit, right? For business lines of credit that I don't use. I
Yep.
don't use unless I need it. And then as soon as the money comes in, because if you want bigger clients, right, which we're always vying for,
Yeah.
sometimes they have longer payment cycles. And so, but with the
Mhm.
business line of credit, I'm able to then pay people
Yeah.
on time and everything, and then reimburse as soon as I get the payments from the client, and then see what the profit margins are and all of that too, right? And factor that in. And in my case, I can't speak for other people. It's taken longer, right? It's taken longer to be at this place where financially I feel stable. I have room to growth to explore investments and all of that.
Yeah.
But you know what? No one's got me by the balls.
You. Yes.
I
It's
don't
your
have
ship.
an investor like breathing down my neck. So
Mhm.
that's it. I'll pass it along. Those are my
Mhm.
takeaways. Yeah. So, and it works for me. I'm not sure that it'll work for other people. And I'm sure that there are other things like when there's inventory. And I know, Xaulanda, you've worked in manufacturing
Mhm.
in the past, that you might be able to, bring that perspective too. So,
Alex, I'm happy you brought this up because I think a lot of folks that might be transitioning from that corporate into becoming small business owners um, don't underestimate the mind shift that needs
Mhm.
to happen from a financial standpoint, right? As an employee, you don't worry about where the money's coming from because you know you're going to
Yeah.
get that check every 2 weeks, right? You're not as concerned with how you're investing your time because I'm going to get the check in 2 weeks, right? There's just that expectation and that
Yeah.
consistency that makes you comfortable.
Yes.
But it's interesting because as a small business entrepreneur, a government agency reached out to me and I do training and they're like, could you do a 1 day training? And I was like, in my mind saying, oh my God, this is awesome, right? I'm going to get a project where I can make some money for that day. And as we talked through the conversation, I go, what's your budget? And they're like, well, we don't have a budget. We're kind of just doing it for our employees and we're asking people for donations. And I said, I appreciate what you're trying to do for your employees. I think it's a good gesture, right? I think that they do need this time. I said, but you need to look at it from the lens of an entrepreneur. And oftentimes we don't talk about this. I
Yes.
was like, every hour that I spend at your place is an hour I'm not making money. And I said, if I don't hunt, and I don't kill, I don't eat. I don't have that 2 week check,
Yeah.
right? And so there's that mindset shift that needs to happen. And oftentimes we look at just direct cost. You know, oh, I'm going to do 8 hours of training. How much per hour do I want to bill for that training? That's the direct cost. But then what I share with folks is when it comes to your finances as an entrepreneur, you're looking at the direct cost, you're looking at the indirect cost. So, for example, with a training, if it takes you 3 hours of preparation for every hour, that's a cost that the client is not necessarily seeing, but that's part of your delivery, right? What are the opportunity costs? If you take this project For example, we were talking about if I'm going after this grant of $5,000, but I'm taking all my resources and putting it in there, and I'm not sure I'm going to get this $5,000 grant. What is the opportunity cost had you focused on a project that was maybe $20,000? That's the opportunity cost of $15,000 that you could have made had you focused it over here. So I think for the audience, when it comes to finances as a small business owner, you have to have that mindset shift. It's critical to the success of your business, right? And then once you're able to do that, one of the things that Samí and I talk about a lot is once you're a solopreneur and you're getting ready to build that capacity, right? And you're bringing people on board, of course, you want to do right by the independent consultants or their employees that are working with you, right? You want them to feel vested. You want them to feel part of the team. You want all of those intangibles. And at the same time, you're having to balance this money I'm giving, these folks are earning, let's put it that way. These folks are earning this amount from my bank account every month. I've made that commitment to them. So they're depending on it or they're expecting payment. But where is that money coming from to keep my bank account where I have the money and I'm not stressing? Because many entrepreneurs, we might take on a project and because we don't look at all the costs involved, right? Particularly when it comes to the commitments we've made, we got to make sure that money's coming in. And to your point, when you're talking about that net 15, net 30, net 45,
Right.
as a business owner, do not give me net 60. Do not give me net 90.
Yeah.
I need that cash flow coming in. It's like gas. If you're not putting gas in your vehicle, you can't drive, right? And so if you want to go longer distances, you might have to make more stops and you need that cash to be able to refill as you go along. So it's really looking at how you approach that financial constraint. But many small business owners, don't talk about it. We just kind of suffer in silence and try to figure it out for ourselves.
Yes.
And so I'm so happy that you brought up that topic because I know Samí and Chris and I have all talked about it. And here's an opportunity for us to really hone in some more. What are your thoughts, Chris?
This conversation is giving me anxiety back to when I first my business.
PTSD, right?
Very
We're all suffering.
Job somewhere.
No, I mean, when I started my video production company, I mean, finances, yeah, I mean, coming from a corporate world to fending for yourself, to like eating, what you hunt and what you kill, and then also having that imposter syndrome as well of wanting to offer a discount because you don't have the reel or the resume to show for it. But then you also want to deliver the best quality product, which might, require renting equipment, bringing on team members, trying to account for taxes. And then even with, a net 30 payment, oftentimes that still isn't met. It looks good on paper. It's a number. But when you're, hounding businesses for, like, oh, yeah, we're on it. Oh, I thought we sent that check out. Let me check with our accountant again and stuff. And, you're just getting thrown around. I mean, it's those things to your point, Alex, I had no idea. I mean, I thought I was like, oh, I'll have to be, more responsible and stuff. But the amount of calculations you have to make of, what's coming in, what's going out, what do you need just to get to the next month? And then, then breaking it down ultimately into, which I did not do at first, but then into like strategies. Okay, how many, what percentage of sales calls do I actually close? So how many sales calls do I need to make a month to, get on that? But I only learned that through kind of the pain of knowing what it was like to not know those things. And I just think those financial constraints are extremely difficult. Again, especially as when you're first starting out, but even as you go along, you're still going to run into issues where, people aren't paying on time. You're trying to keep things afloat. You're paying out of pocket, paying into the business that is supposed to be, supporting your life. And just goes all over the place there. So
and the pricing too. Yeah,
Yeah, if I could jump in, because as you were talking, Chris, what also came to mind is when we do land those contracts, say you get $100,000 contract, right? People are like, oh, wow, you've landed this really great contract. But what they don't see is how much money of that contract is going out. So, for example, as an entrepreneur, I've had to tell clients, I said, I'm taking this because it allows me, it's a client that pays consistently, right? They're really good at that. But my profit margin is really, really slim on it. But I had to share with my team. I said, even though the profit margin is very slim, the fact that we're having this consistent cash flow allows us a little bit of flexibility to know that this money's coming in as we're building our other revenue streams, right? Because you have to diversify as an entrepreneur. You'll have those projects where you have a small profit margin, but you know the client's going to pay on time. You might have one with a bigger profit margin, but they're not going to pay for, 30 days or whatever. You have to be able to diversify how your money is coming in to be able to support what's going out and still be able to make a profit. Because let's just be real, right? As much as we go into business from the heart of it, we love what we do. We love working with people. You're not a business if you're not making money.
yeah,
Then it's a hobby, right?
yeah,
We don't go into business to not make money. Let's just be real,
yes,
right? And so
exactly.
being mindful of that. Yeah.
And one last thing on this, because there's so many other topics I want to make sure we cover. So another piece of advice is learn how to price
Yes.
well too. And Chris and I, when he was just starting, he called me. He's like, "Can we have coffee?" I'm like, "Sure. What's going on?" And I don't know if you remember that in half an hour, though, it's like a light bulb went off, right?
Mhm.
I told him, "Papa, you need to charge more, right?"
Yep.
And Papa, these proposals, no, one pager. Don't waste your time, right? Don't waste time with people gonna nickel and dime you. That's
Yep.
it. Done, right? Next,
Mhm.
next. I'm over it, right? Because
Yep.
I know the quality of our work,
Mhm.
and so that's it. So I hope this is useful. I think it's a good reminder to all of us, right? But yes, these are the hidden things, right, regarding finances when you're starting a business. And so I hope this has been a helpful conversation. I know it has for me, because I'm like, yeah, that's true, right? It's like, make sure your pricing is on point. Don't settle for less. Find your ideal audience, and make sure that you learn how to forecast and plan. And if you have the ability to self fund, and build your credit and learn the tax codes too,
Mhm.
right? It's all in the tax code, right? That's how the rich do, right? They know all the loopholes. So make sure you know the tax
Mhm.
code, and of course within reason, and be legal about it, right?
Yeah.
But learn them. Find a freaking awesome accountant that can help you, because then those savings you could put into hiring better qualified people, learn how to splice and dice how you invest in talent and building bandwidth. And that actually takes us into the next topic, right?
Mhm.
Which is employee recruitment and retention. So tell us, Alex, what are your observations
You know, guys,
about this?
I have to say, I think that we should just have 7 episodes.
I know, right?
I'm
When
kind of
Sammy
like, oh,
Yeah, when Sammy said pricing, I was said to myself, that could be one episode in and of
in
itself.
Yes,
Because I
itself,
had
right?
that
yes.
question on a call the other day we were in a professional association and we were talking about, professional development, investing in yourself as an entrepreneur so that your skills continue to stay sharp. And one person was like, this is great, but how do I price this? I'm like, this could be a whole nother episode, but let's get back on
Yeah.
track. The employee
Right?
retention for it.
Okay. Yeah. Can I sneak in something to
Sure,
add?
absolutely.
Because I was so inspired. I was, as you guys were talking, and um you all said so many things that were really valuable. I do have my little notes happening here, right? And hopefully people who are listening will also, take advantage. Also, first, Sami, like, congratulations on 16 years, because
Yes.
I feel like that's something, I don't know for you guys, like, every year I make it, I'm like, wow, like,
Yeah.
as you said, like, it is hard work and we don't really celebrate. Like, that's a lot.
And you've
Mhm.
been in
In
business for
business,
4 years now, right?
this business is 4 years, and it feels like, if sometimes it feels like 5 minutes, and sometimes it
Mhm.
feels like 800, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just like, I have so much respect. Like that's a long period of time to be in
Mm-hmm.
business. You know, we all hear the stats of how many businesses, you know, like don't make it even 1 year, 5 years.
5 years.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I think like, wow. And anyone
Thank
who's made
you.
it, I have so much respect for it because it is
Thank
really
you.
tough.
Thank
So,
you. It is.
anyway, I thought that like, honestly, you guys said so much stuff that was valuable and just like Sammy, what you were talking about in terms of the forecasting and planning, and what you just said too about like taxes and planning there. Personally, like my accountant is one of my best friends. We've
Mm-hmm.
become friends over the years because like, we like, she knows me and my business better than I do. And she'll like
Mm-hmm.
identify opportunities very legitimately. She'll be the
Mm-hmm.
one who knows like, oh, this is a new program. You should think about this. And
Yeah.
like, I have so much appreciation for that. But one thing that I am embarrassed to say, I don't know if you have this experience, but I have a lot of do as I say, not as I do in my business. So
Mm-hmm.
like when I consult and advise for others, it's very easy for me to see from a distance like what they should do, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't do all those things in my business.
Yeah.
And Semi, you were just talking about the planning side and forecasting. I am a nerd, so I always love spreadsheets. So like
Mm-hmm.
like for me, the forecasting and cash flow was something that like came very naturally because I just like love it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know, as you said, a lot of people are not as comfortable on the math side, and I do think that's invaluable, like you said, just to
Mm-hmm.
from day one start thinking differently in terms of your credit and your cash. But
Mhm.
something that was new for me, I'm kind of embarrassed to say, is so we're launching a new product next week. Actually, I'm very excited about it. I won't bother you about it now. Next up, you can have me back, and I'll bug you about it. I'll tell you about it then. But anyway, and as I was working with our, with my team, we're talking to kind of my my marketing head and my ops head, and I don't remember who else was there. We were all in a, kind of just like getting excited for this launch and talking about
Mm-hmm.
it. And my marketing head like started off the conversation with the most basic question. And she was just like, well, what are the goals for this campaign?
Mhm.
And I felt like an idiot because I was like, I haven't thought about it. And
Mm-hmm.
something so basic, but like I think we're, as business owners, we get better with time in
Mm-hmm.
planning out, our head count and our financial out expenses. But we actually don't necessarily think, as you were saying, about like the revenue and the income, and also just for everything we work on to kind of quantify it. So, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
small little side note, but for me,
Yes.
that was really valuable was when and then I actually, when I started looking at the numbers, like this project that we're launching, actually is not going to like be a big money maker. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay because like
Yeah.
my objectives with it are very different. It's about reaching more people and doing more good. But
Mm-hmm.
still, it's like, I hadn't really realized that until forced to ask the question. So I love that. I think, like good financial planning is like you said, there's so many pieces. And what you all said in terms of, pricing and discounting and, diversifying your portfolio. Like, these are just all brilliant. We can talk about them all. So
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
I'm thinking I want to take you up on that offer of doing just this one about finances. I know, Chris, so you can jump in now, right? So that way we can
Oh, we're so
spend, the next couple of minutes just digging deeper into this topic. And we're gonna have you back, Alex. So you're gonna be
Yes.
our small business a sounding board kind of exercise. Yeah, moving forward, if you don't mind. We'll spread them out throughout the year. How's that?
Oh my goodness. I love it. Cause yeah, like I think I could talk forever. And I know there's a lot more for us to talk about too, even within this context of finances, what we were talking about earlier, a bit in terms of like grants and funding and contracting, and some of the challenges there too. You're right. Doesn't leave a lot of time for the many
Mm-hmm.
other buckets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would just jump in to say I think part of the solution base of this for somebody getting into a small business, and I think just hearing the common theme throughout this conversation that the aha moments we had, or the when we realized that we didn't ask ourselves a question that we should have, came from having a sounding board or somebody trusted that we reached out to. So I think when you're about to start a business, when you are starting a business, after you have started a business, stay connected to people who can, who are in the same boat as you, but also who are, a few steps ahead of you. So you are, constantly able to bounce those ideas off. I mean, with Xaulanda and Samí, through the podcast, but also just through working together. We've stayed in touch and always bounced business questions and ideas off each other. I have a bi-weekly, we call it like a tribe meeting, but it's me and like 3 other business owners who meet every couple weeks just to talk about what's going on. A networking group that I meet with regularly, and the more that I get out there, and sometimes it is tough to get out and network, especially when you are a small business owner and you have 8 million other fires to put out. But just being able to hear those different ideas, to ask questions from people who are certified or qualified in those areas of expertise, to me is where you can help overcome, not just financial issues, but a lot of issues in your business, but especially understanding those hidden costs. Again, if a new person was coming to me talking about starting a video business, and they have those rose-colored glasses on, and they're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to go. And if they ask me about finances, I'm going to scare them a little bit, but with encouragement, but helping to just impart the advice that I had to go through the hard way, because I wasn't reaching out as much. And when I learned I needed to price more was because I had that coffee with Samí, and so on. So I think it's just that leverage the networks and the people around you, and don't feel foolish to ask, because again, people who have been there are happy to impart that advice, and I think you really need it when you're starting a small business.
Yeah. I wanted to add that networking, because you mentioned networking and building relationships. So if you're a startup or business owner like us, I find value in networking, and the more intimate the settings, the better. Okay. So if it's a big conference, that's fine and dandy. But if people are like, meet, greet, next, right? And so you want to be able to have profound conversations and really get to know people. We always talk about breaking bread, but I'm also thinking about doing proper research as to where you need to be, right? So if you're invited to sit on a board or to be part of a committee, study who's on that board, who's in that committee. And quite frankly, if it doesn't serve you, next. Number 2, you're invited to a gazillion events. There's so much stuff going on all the time, right? And while it sounds fun, you need to study what are the topics that being spoken, who are the speakers, do they study the speakers too, are they approachable, or do they seem cool when they're on the stage? And then then you find out, because you can find all of this information through our friend on the internet, right? Before you go and waste your time on gas, energy, expenses, getting dressed, the water to take a shower, everything adds up, right?
All those indirect costs, all those indirect
lipstick for women, for us, right? All of that, right? Is factored in. It's like a waste if you're not gonna, get something out of it. And it's not being selfish. We need to rid ourselves of this idea that we're being self-centered, narcissistic, or greedy, or just it's our interest, or with a hidden agenda. It's not. It's just, as a small business owner, every minute counts, every penny counts, and it has to all be well invested. That's it. And then last but not least, when you go into these circles where you're supposed to be, you will find investors. You will find your sounding board. You will find the people that are interested in supporting you. So it's exponential. The more you do it, the more you go out and are in the places and spaces that are endemic, right, to what you do, you will find people that say, hey, so how do you do this? And they'll come, you'll be able to confide in them. And then you're like, yeah, and the thing is, I need funding for more inventory. And bam, they'll be like, well, you know what? My uncle, right, is a investor. Let me make that. You know what I'm saying? And those are the best ways to get investors if you're going to get an investor. Okay. And so, because I don't want to say, oh, don't get investment dollars and don't raise money, right? What I'm saying is there's other ways of doing it instead of a pitch competition with 10 other people, and then them telling you with a blank poker face, your product sucks, right? Because they
Right.
do that. They like, yeah, it's brutal, right? And so why if you could go the back way, right,
Yeah.
through relationships and have the insider's advantage, because it's
Yeah.
all about the insider's advantage, people, with
Mhm.
everything, including RFPs and all of that. So that was my bit right there.
Yeah. And, just to reinforce your point, I think when we as small business owners are going after a client that may be a business, we're looking at it from the business to business perspective. But when you really peel back the layers, every organization is comprised of people, right? And people do business with people that they know, they like, and they trust, right? So if you're not if you're not in one of those three categories, they're more than likely not going to do business with you, and you might as well just find your tribe, right? So I think that's important, but I think what's also important as small business entrepreneurs is being open and being curious to exploring, but also for receiving honest feedback from people who are trying to share with you. I think sometimes because our business is our baby, if people are saying, okay, maybe you should put a ribbon here, we automatically take it as they're saying our baby's ugly, right? Because we're just, this is what we've birthed. We're emotionally attached to it. And while that's a good thing, we also need to be open to hearing it, particularly when it's coming from people that networking, you meet a lot of people. You meet gatekeepers, you meet people that's going to blow smoke up your ass. I'm sorry, I'm just going to be frank, right? But then you do meet those people, like the Sammys and the Chris and the Alexes, where you could sit down and have those honest conversations about what's going on. And they're going to be like, this is what I'm seeing. And these are the strategies you might want to consider. You got to be open to receiving it, and so that's the value I find in networking, is finding those folks that is going to be, Xaulanda, yeah, your baby's cute, but you might want to put this outfit on it. And I was
But
like,
the business, but from a financial standpoint too, right? Because, and
yeah,
I'll give you an example, the business line of credit that I was able to secure because I didn't know what I didn't know.
no, yeah,
People, balance sheet, cash flow, and P&L. You
yeah,
should be doing that as frequently as you can to see
mm-hmm,
where the hell you're at, right? In terms of your profit margins and how healthy your finances are, right?
mm-hmm,
So that way you can continue growing. And so it wasn't until a few years ago that I learned about balance sheet. I've been in business for 16 years.
mm-hmm,
Right. And so then I knew the other two, and I called my accountant and I'm like, pero ven acá, how come you've never sent me this? Right. And so when he sent it and I learned how to read it, right? So you need to understand how to read these three key documents.
mm-hmm,
The business plan is important. Everything's important, but this
yeah,
is about your financial health. When I read it, I said, oh my God, wait a second. I think we're really doing much better than I knew
mm-hmm,
we were okay. But now I'm like, oh my God, right? And so
mm-hmm,
I sent it to my friend in
mm-hmm,
my network who's a VP of banking, she's a banker. And I said, Rosa, how does this look? And she's like, girl, 5 days. Come over. I have all your paperwork ready. 5 days. I had a business line of credit. So where I'm getting at is study and learn every single day about everything that has to do with tax laws, or get a professional, right? Like you, Alex. It's a good thing that you have an accountant that's looking out for you, right?
mm-hmm.
Mine needs a nudge, or maybe that's a whole other conversation. Yeah,
Well, if they're
please.
looking at the
Hook
podcast, they'll
me
get
up.
the nudge right now,
Exactly.
like,
But
note to
even
self,
then,
pay attention.
But even then, if it ain't working, change it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so then,
yeah.
yes. And so
I'll agree.
this is the harsh conversation. I hope my
Mm-hmm.
accountant's not looking, but yeah, it made me think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, but wait a second, you know? So these are the things that we need to be asking that creep up on you and that you don't realize, oh, wait a second. If it's not front and center, I'm like shooting blanks. It's like pew,
Mm-hmm.
pew. You're like
Yeah.
shooting blanks and you're not gonna get anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I can add to that, I again love what you guys are saying. It's so interesting because, Xaulanda, what you were just saying as well, and Samí about like, these trusted advisors, right? It's so true. Like it's all at the end of the day, as you said, like it is all know, like, and trust. It's all relationships, right? And I love that you said that, Samí, because me too, like I love people and I love networking and meeting people, but I do find, but like oftentimes I'll end up going to tons of events just because I'm interested. And then I kind of come home and it's like, well, that was fun, but like there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a goal or an objective. I didn't connect with the right people. But also, just like kind of little slack to sometimes like the, accountants or the folks who might not be helping us as much as we'd like or need. I think the other part too is I forget all the time that like businesses, like Xaulanda, you were saying, as we think of them as our babies. They are our babies, right? But they're babies, but they grow, right? And they
Yes.
change. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's something else that I also forget is it like a business is a kid, but it will grow and evolve. And so the people that we need and the systems and the processes and everything we need also changes over time. So like what we all needed as support, whether it's financial, it could be just advisory, emotional and psychological, right?
Yeah.
All of that, like it's really different when you're starting your business, when you're in whatever year that is, 2, 3, 5, 10. So
Mm-hmm.
to your point, I mean, like some people, like you might have a really great accountant who was wonderful for when you were getting started because they
Right.
are really great at incorporation and like hiring or something like that. But as your company gets a little bit bigger and more mature,
Mm-hmm.
then the needs of the company change and like the people you need to surround yourself with also change. So I just think that that's a really nice, when we talk about kind of, yes, like our ugly babies, Xaulanda, I have exactly the same feeling. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's really tough, right? Because like you do put everything into
Into.
your
Mm-hmm.
business and it is an extension of you. And as much as we all try, like it is hard when people offer criticism or advice, even if you know that that is the best thing, like
Mm-hmm.
it burns. And I
Yeah.
don't know about you guys, I have to, like, I'm a slow learner, it turns out. I had advice, like, again, like, I'm really lucky that I'm surrounded by bright people all the time. And people told me, in year one, in year zero, they told me so much stuff that I just didn't do. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I just needed to like fail, learn,
Learn. Yeah.
over and over. Like the basic stuff people told me, like don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try to offer service to everyone. Focus, niche, hit a
Mm-hmm.
particular market. But I refused to listen. I was like, no, I know best. This is what I want. This is what's my spirit, And well, what happened is like they were all right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but I wasn't prepared to hear that. Like it took years and it's taken many number of people to tell me the same thing over and over before finally I was able to kind of and finally have enough distance to be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they were right. And like, this is what's best. Sammy, like you were saying too, that like, it's not selfish when we talk about pricing and money. It's not selfish to be like, oh, I'm thinking only all the time about money. Like your business is your life and it's your responsibility, right? To think of it, and it's not being selfish. It's just being responsible when we think about like what's best for my business financially or in terms of its performance. That like to, as you said, Xaulanda, like the mindset shift
Shift.
is
Mm-hmm.
really important, right? Like the business is like a person. It's an
Mm-hmm.
entity. It has rights and obligations and it needs love and attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always think that it's like my little jerk child, like
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
little whine, it doesn't listen all the time. It doesn't do
Yeah.
what I ask. It doesn't pay attention. I still love it. I give it everything. And I just like hope that one of these days it'll become a very wonderful, productive member of society.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'll
Yeah.
just add on top of that. I think one of the biggest things that helped me once I realized to do this was, obviously you're starting a business kind of with a goal in mind, ideally, or an end in mind of the type of life you want to live, the type of business you want to create, and I think one of the big things as you're getting started, because it's very difficult starting your business to work on your business because you're definitely in the weeds working in your business. But just to keep reminding yourself, I don't know, put it on your bed, do the manifestations and stuff, but to always keep your eye on the ultimate goal of why you started the business, because it's all that stuff in between, the shiny object syndrome, or one bad situation kind of veers you off, but to get yourself back on course. When I kind of started doing that, it helped me then make more responsible financial decisions with my business, and say no more to things that were not in line with that end goal. Because like there was a period of time, again, even with my video production company, where all of a sudden I was doing like theater shows, and I was doing all these other things, and I was buying different equipment to fulfill all these different things, because it was like, oh, money can come from here, money can come from there, money can come from there. But then all of a sudden I had like a stockpile of equipment that when that client, wasn't coming to me anymore, then I,
Yeah.
I
No.
it wasn't useful. And I realized I had spent a lot that I didn't need to, had I just stayed the course on the business I initially tried to create. And, through the relationships and friendships, your goal may change, but I think it's always important just to have that, like, a couple year down the road, what do I want this to be, and what do I want this to look like? And if you just kind of work within the confines of that, or the constructs of that, it again just helps you kind of think more clearly about when the storms start happening and the shit starts hitting the fan, that you're kind of like, wait, if I go this direction, I'll eventually get there. So
Yeah. And I mean, this has been such a powerful, I feel, and robust, conversation. I just wanted to maybe just wrap it up with some data, right? Xaulanda and I were working a couple of years back during the pandemic on a project that was a pilot program to really support or better understand the small business ecosystem, specifically owners of color, right? Entrepreneurs of color. And we did one-on-one interviews with 64
Wow.
business owners, yes, in the Southeast, 8 states of the US. And this is just for all new business owners out there, or people that are thinking of starting a business, so you could do it comfortably, right? So you could do it comfortably, because many of us are not afforded the luxury of research and development. One of the big aha moments for me during this interview process, and when we're analyzing the data, is that on average, small business owners, when looking back to those first 6 months that they started their businesses, said that if they had in hand $30,000, they would have been able to conduct research and development and focus on that to get off on the right path before actually opening their doors and dealing with customers or clients and stuff like that, right? And so, for whatever it's worth, we wanted to share that too, because if you're looking to start a business, and for many of us, like, I look back when I heard that data, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I was struggling so much, right? Because I didn't have the 30K, right? I mean, I started off laptop, the brain, right? And whatever networks I had. But I think that's important information to share, because if you have an idea or you're starting a business and you're kind of stuck from a financial standpoint, maybe, just maybe, get a job, save up, it's not plan B, it's plan for now, right? It's a shift, right? It's a shift for now. So then you can get up to a $6,000 nest egg that can then make you breathe so you can work and live and be comfortable for 6 months and really hyper focus on what we were all talking about, right? On forecasting, on planning, on looking on your pricing, on your business plan, on finding the right accountant, not just like getting someone right, because it's like you're fire to put out, which is what
Yeah.
happened.
Right.
My
Crisis.
accountant, because the IRS sent me a letter that I owed them $15,000 and I almost had a heart attack. Yes, that was in year 2. So you know what I'm saying? So 6 months of prep, 30 grand on average, give or take, depending on your industry, right? Is something that you should consider before getting into this hot mess. But very rewarding hot
Very
mess.
rewarding. Yeah.
Very, very rewarding because I'll repeat, no one's got us by the balls.
And because no one has us by the balls, we have an opportunity to co-create our future, right? So when I talk to a lot of people who are thinking about going into business or are new in business, I tell them focus on 3 things. What is the lifestyle you're hoping to have? What does that lifestyle look like? Because I think in this conversation, may have made the assumption that people are in business full time as entrepreneurs. But to
And
Samí's
it's sexy. And it's sexy.
yeah, and it's sexy, and you have flexibility, and you're traveling, or you're doing this. Yeah, that's the part you see. But what you don't see with the lifestyle is all the sacrifices you have to make to be able to sustain what it is that you're trying to do. And to your point, Alex, what are the goals? What is the lifestyle that you're hoping to have? And maybe it is doing it as a side gig while having a full time so that you can put yourself in the financial position to be able to transition into that full time entrepreneurship. So the lifestyle, what's the income? We talked a lot about finances and constraints. What's the income you're hoping to have? And what's the impact? I think at the heart of it, all of us go into business because we're trying to create a positive change in our sphere of influence. We're trying to help people accomplish their dreams. We're hoping to make an impact and leave things better than we found it. So if you look at it from those 3 perspectives and you come up with goals, like what's the lifestyle I'm hoping to have? What's the income that I need to make to be able to sustain that? And what's the impact that I'm really hoping to have? I think all the other things, the processes, the people, the networking, all of that starts to fall in line when you're lock and step on those goals.
And then I'll just wrap up on my part with one of the best pieces of business advice I ever got. It was a entrepreneur in Florida that went to and basically said, I want to start a business. I want to. I was still working for like nonprofit at the time, and I said I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know like what type of business to start. And to basically what Xaulanda just said, he said, well, first think about like envision who you want to be and what you would feel proud to be respected and known for, and then work backwards from that to decide what kind of business you want to be in. And I say that because a lot of small business owners might get in it for the money or get into a certain business for the money. But when things get really tough, the only way you kind of get through those tough situations is when you're passionate about what you're doing. Again, that end goal, and saying like, all right, I'm going to, deal with this shit for a little while so I can get through to the other side, because that is where I want to be. And if you don't have that motivation of the why you're doing it on the other end, finances and everything, it's just gonna you're gonna lose that passion, that motivation. But Alex, how can people find Cansulta, work with Cansulta?
I love it. Thanks for letting me plug, guys. Yes, please do. Visit us. We're cansulta.com. And it was really inspired. We've got the it was the Obama-esque Yes We Can. We try to sneak it in, but the logo, the little A, looks like an O sometimes, so I lose people. So it's Cansulta. Please check us out, and you can find some really awesome folks to help your business, and including some of the wonderful team here. So that's pretty exciting to me. Thank you so much, Chris, for that. And to all of you, really, like, thank you so much. I really just think this is wonderful and great to be part of the show, and hopefully some more in the future.
Oh yeah,
Yes, we
it's
can
gonna
so much
be
more
a
to talk
series.
about. You got to come back, Alex.
Yes,
We have at least
totally.
2 more episodes based on your homework.
Exactly.
We're just
You
getting started,
You
people.
see, you proposed it, and we're sold.
Yup,
Done.
yup.
Done.
That's how this
Thank
works.
you so much. Listen, I really love all of you, and this is so good. This is so good, and I appreciate you. So until next time, bye-bye, everyone.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of Issues to Impact on the I Have Something to Say podcast. I hope you found our discussion today both valuable and inspiring. Remember, at Issues to Impact, we're dedicated to turning challenges into opportunities and supporting you and making a real difference in your community. If you have a challenge you're facing, we invite you to be a guest on our show. Reach out to us and let us be your expert sounding board. Together, we can find solutions and drive meaningful change. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media and join our community of passionate changemakers. Stay connected, stay inspired, and let's continue to make an impact, tackling one issue at a time. Thank you for listening.